save $1 million, take $40,000 out per year, and never run out of money. That's the 4% rule in a nutshell. And that's been the backbone of retirement planning for 3 decades. But it's also, in my opinion, one of the more harmful rule of thumbs in the financial planning industry. And it's not because the math is wrong or it's ill-intentioned, but I believe it's asking the wrong question. I'm Brennan, Decima, certified financial planner and owner of Decima Wealth Consulting. And I've been helping retirees for the past 2 decades navigate and enjoy their retirement. And in today's video, I'm going to go over what the 4% rule is, where it came from, how it impacts you, and why it might be costing you the quality of retirement that you've worked so hard to deserve. So I want to give credit where credit is due. The 4% rule has really good intentions in mind. It's been around for 30 years. It was created in 1994 by William Bengen. He was a financial advisor, and he was running a study over what sustainable withdrawal rates for a 30-year retirement would be. And he landed on 4%. Now, he was using a set of assumptions that, in my opinion, are just not overly realistic. So he assumed that the portfolio was 50% stocks, 50% bonds. And it maintained that. There was never any change in risk tolerance. There was never any drift. It assumes the investor is the perfect investor and rebalances at the right time every time. They buy low, they sell high, they're always 50-50. Maybe that happens, maybe it doesn't. The second thing that there's an assumption of is that there's no drift upward in spending. It's never more than 4%. Now, again, if we think about that, $1 million nest egg can take out $40,000. Well, if there's a 20% correction, that's assuming that you're taking 4% off $800,000. So now lifestyle is going down to $32,000 instead of $40,000. Maybe we cut the belt, maybe we don't. So no dynamic spending, no drift, no investment inertia is how we got to the 4% rule. Now, since coming out with that study, even the author of that study has revised his initial data. He came out in 2025 and said, hey, maybe that number is closer to 4.7. Morningstar ran a study last year that said, actually, it's more like 3.9. So what is it? Is it 3.9, 4, 4.7? Even the experts have differing views of what it can be. But at the end of the day, the number is not necessarily the point. The challenge with the 4% rule is I believe that it is addressing the wrong question. Now, the question that it is addressing is what is the withdrawal rate that is going to leave me with a higher balance when I die than when I retire? And that's solving for what is the least amount that I can spend safely. I'm going to say that again. It is solving for what is the least amount that you can spend in retirement. Now, for some people, they want that. They want a higher balance when they pass away. But in reality, that means you have reduced your spending. You've reduced your quality of life. And after 2 decades of helping thousands of retirees, I find a much more common question is, hey, how do I maximize quality of life in retirement? How do I spend more in retirement? So the question that we should be asking is not, hey, what's the least amount I can spend? But it's what is the maximum amount that our portfolio can sustain without jeopardizing our future and still being on track for the legacy goals that we have. So a 4% rule story that sticks out with me is I had worked with these 2 clients, Don and Linda. They had done a wonderful job preparing for retirement. They were both retired. They had saved $2.5 million. And they had done a great job really streamlining their budget. They had a very robust Excel spreadsheet. And they shared with me that the year leading up to retirement, they had really focused on getting their withdrawal number under 4%. And they had actually gotten the spend down to $75,000, which if you're doing the math is 3%. So by any, textbook definition, pretty safe withdrawal rate in retirement. But as we sat together and we started talking about the non-mathematical stuff, what's going to bring them joy, what do they want to spend their time with, everything that they were saying brought them joy, they had removed from the budget. They had gotten rid of their club memberships. They had gotten rid of the travel budget. They had gotten rid of the budget to splurge on the grandkids. So they really didn't know what they were going to do with this streamlined budget. When we brought it all back into the plan, it came out to about $120,000. Now, this is over the 4% rule, but in talking to them, it still seemed like a pretty safe withdrawal rate because their goal was not to leave behind a legacy. It was to spend in a way that allowed them to travel and to enjoy time with their family. They'd much rather splurge on the kids while they were here and could see it than leave money behind. But that 4% rule and trying to get under it really had put them in a position where they were planning on sacrificing the healthiest years of their retirement just to stay under that 4% benchmark. And in my opinion, that's harmful because we're sacrificing quality of life over a general rule of thumb. The other challenge that I see with the 4% rule is it's really disconnected with real-world application for retirement spending. In my experience, most of my clients, and research backs this up as well, but most of my clients, they want to capitalize on their early, healthy, active years when they first retire. So the beginning of retirement, that first 10 years, most of them are doing more. They're spending more. So spending tends to be higher on the front end of retirement. Then the next 10 years, they tend to slow down a little bit. Maybe they're not as healthy, not as active, so they're doing less, traveling less. And then unfortunately, the back end of retirement, I tend to see spending ramp up, normally not on the enjoyable expenditures, but on things like healthcare. Now, the 4% rule doesn't care about that. So retirement has seasons, life has seasons, but regardless of those seasons, the 4% rule is kind of like setting a thermostat and saying, this one number is the right number for all seasons. And that's just not the reality. We know that life changes, needs change, goals change. The 4% rule is not factoring that in. It's also not factoring in the lift you can get from proper tax planning or Social Security claiming strategies. So everyone's situation is a little bit different. We should not be relying blindly on just, hey, stay under that 4% parameter and everything will work out. So what do we do instead? And the answer is to build a plan. And I know that sounds obvious, so let me share what I mean by that. A plan, and that term gets thrown around a lot in the industry, is more than just running a Monte Carlo simulation or telling you what investment allocation you have. An actual plan starts with your life. It starts by asking what activities do you want to do or are planning on doing that are going to bring you fulfillment, joy, purpose. Where do you want to go and how do you want to spend your time? How do we see supporting your kids while you're here or when you're gone? What impact are you making in the community? And once we know what that looks like, we can then back into the numbers. We can then focus on when you should claim Social Security because Social Security is going to impact your taxable income for the rest of your life. We can then look at your tax brackets each and every year to determine what accounts you should be taking from, or do we have wiggle room to do Roth conversions to give you more spending power later in life? Do we also look at your healthcare cost and focus on the IRMAA thresholds and not giving away extra money to the IRS because we didn't plan accordingly? So all of those things are much more robust than just relying on the 4% rule. For some people, they're going to be able to spend much more than 4% and they're going to be safe. For others, they're going to spend less. But at the end of the day, it's about your life and your needs and creating a plan that maximizes those and fits all those puzzle pieces together. Here's what I believe. You didn't work your entire career saving just to be afraid to spend money in retirement. Wealth is a tool. It's designed to improve your quality of life as well as the lives of those that you care about. And if a general rule of thumb is preventing you from that quality of life, the rule is not protecting you. It's holding you back. There's nothing worse. I've sat with people in their 80s that have just expressed remorse and regret that they didn't do more. They've shared that they wish they would have spent more time with the kids and grandkids. They wish they would have traveled more while they were healthy and active. So it's my goal to make sure that you know what you can spend comfortably and maximize your spending, and it's up to you how you take that information and put it to work. If you found this helpful, please hit subscribe. I'll be sharing other retirement planning topics. I'll also be challenging conventional wisdom. I hope to see you in the next video.